Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're tackling something that looks pretty complex. Music as like a cultural manifestation of the field.
Yeah,
You sent over some excerpts for this one.
it's a really dense study for sure, but it's definitely fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
The author's basic point is that music isn't just something we make, or enjoy,
Right.
but a force that interacts with society
Okay.
and shapes the world in ways we might not even realize.
So before we get too far into it, I think it's important to define what we mean when we say the field.
Yeah,
Essentially, we're talking about this interconnected web of energy and consciousness
right.
that connects everything.
Exactly. It's like the underlying fabric of existence that connects everything.
Yeah.
And the idea is that music in its various forms and genres reflects this field.
Okay.
It echoes its principles and patterns.
So music is giving us a way to experience this interconnectedness.
Yeah, on like an emotional and even spiritual level.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the first excerpt we have here dives right into this concept of music as resonance.
Okay.
It talks about how resonance in the field creates coherence and amplifies these harmonious interactions.
Yeah.
And then suggests that music does the same thing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating parallel. When you hear a piece of music that really resonates with you, it's like your individual emotions are syncing up with the larger collective feeling.
Interesting.
The music becomes this bridge connecting you to something bigger than yourself.
The source uses the blues as a perfect example of this.
Oh.
Can you unpack that for us a little?
Absolutely. So the blues emerged from the suffering of African American communities, especially during the Jim Crow era.
Right.
And the music, with its raw emotion, its simple structure, and its repetitive patterns, created a really powerful resonance
Okay.
that echoed the pain, longing, and resilience of a whole culture.
You gave voice to those emotions and made them tangible and shareable.
Yeah.
And there's also that undercurrent of hope, too, right?
Exactly. That
Mm.
belief in the possibility of overcoming hardship. That's that field connection. The blues embody this fundamental duality, this interplay of light and shadow that's inherent in the field itself.
Right.
Suffering and hope, pain and resilience. It's two sides of the same coin.
And the blues didn't just reflect this duality, but also helped shape the emotional landscape of society.
Absolutely.
It influenced everything from the civil rights movement to the development of rock and roll.
Totally.
So getting back to this concept of resonance for a second,
Mm-hmm.
how does that actually work on a musical level?
Well, on a purely physical level, music is all about sound waves and vibrations.
Okay.
And these vibrations have the power to actually resonate with our bodies and minds.
Interesting.
Think about how certain frequencies can trigger a physical response.
Right.
Like a shiver down your spine, or how a powerful bass line can make you feel the music in your chest.
It's like our bodies are wired to respond to these vibrations.
Yeah, to feel them on the visceral level.
And this physical resonance can then translate into an emotional and even spiritual experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When music resonates with us, it's not just about the sound, but the emotions, the memories, the associations that the music evokes.
Okay.
It's about tapping into something deeper within ourselves, something that connects us to the collective human experience.
So the next section in the source gets really interesting.
Okay.
It's called Music as Geometry. And it talks about how musical scales, rhythms, and harmonies have a geometric structure that mirrors the geometry of the universe.
Yeah, well, music and mathematics have always been really closely related.
Yeah.
For centuries, philosophers and musicians have recognized the mathematical underpinnings of music.
Right.
Like the ancient Greeks, they believed that music was based on the same principles of harmony and proportion
Interesting.
that governed the cosmos.
And this concept really comes alive in Baroque music,
Oh, yeah.
like Bach's fugues with their intricate melodies and precise counterpoint.
Absolutely. Bach's music is like the prime example of how musical structure can reflect mathematical principles, especially his fugues. They're incredibly complex, yet they're built on a foundation of these simple, elegant mathematical ratios.
Okay.
It's like he's creating a musical representation of the order and harmony of the universe.
And the source points out that this emphasis on order and structure reflects the societal values of the Enlightenment.
For sure. It was a time when people were searching for a rational understanding of the world.
Right.
They were fascinated by science, logic, reason.
Yeah.
And music became a way to express those values.
So they weren't just aesthetic choices, but reflections of a deeper understanding of the field.
Exactly. It's like Bach was intuiting the underlying principles of harmony and proportion, that govern not only music, but the whole universe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've seen how music can embody resonance and geometry,
Right.
both reflecting the principles of the field.
Uh-huh.
The next concept the source explores is music as emergence.
Okay.
What can you tell us about that?
So emergence is this principle where complex systems arise from simpler elements. Think about how a flock of birds can fly in perfect synchronization, even though there's no leader dictating their movements.
Right.
Or how a colony of ants can build a complex anthill, even though each individual ant is following relatively simple rules.
It's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
And the source uses the birth of jazz as a great example of this principle in music.
Oh, yeah. Jazz is a perfect example of emergence.
Yeah.
It's this incredible fusion of African rhythms, European harmonies,
Right.
and American improvisation.
Uh-huh.
All these different elements came together to create something totally new,
Yeah.
something vibrant and dynamic, something that couldn't have been predicted from its individual components.
And the source describes jazz as this musical melting pot,
Yeah,
reflecting all the changes happening in society in the early 20th century.
absolutely. Urbanization, migration, racial integration.
Yeah.
All this cultural ferment was poured into this crucible, and out came this explosive new form of music.
So if we connect this back to the field,
Yeah.
is the idea that jazz, through its emergent nature, reflects the way the field itself is always evolving and creating new realities?
Precisely. It's like jazz is a musical microcosm of the creative process of the universe itself.
Okay.
It's a reminder that we're all part of this grand interconnected dance,
Yeah.
and that something truly magical can happen when we let go of control and embrace the unknown.
Cool.
Yeah,
So we've seen how music can embody resonance and geometry,
right.
both reflecting these principles of the field.
Uh-huh.
But the source goes even further than that.
Okay.
It goes on to explore music as duality.
Oh, this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Music thrives on dualities, on these contrasting forces.
Okay.
Think about tension and resolution, loud and soft, major and minor keys.
Right.
These dualities are what give music its emotional depth and complexity.
The source specifically mentions Beethoven's symphonies.
Oh, yeah.
As a prime example of this.
They're perfect for this.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. So Beethoven's music beautifully captures this interplay of light and dark,
Okay.
triumph and tragedy.
Yeah.
Like his Fifth Symphony.
Uh-huh.
It opens with that super iconic motif,
Yeah.
those four notes that represent fate knocking at the door.
Right.
But throughout the symphony, he weaves in these moments of soaring beauty, hope, and ultimately a sense of triumphant victory.
Okay.
He doesn't shy away from the darkness, but he also shows us that path towards the light.
And it makes even more sense when you consider the historical context, too.
Totally.
Beethoven lived through incredibly turbulent times.
Yeah, the French Revolution, the
Yeah.
Napoleonic Wars.
Exactly.
You can feel that societal upheaval reflected in his music.
It's like all these dualities, these opposing forces were shaping the world around him.
For sure. And it's not just in his symphonies either.
Oh, right.
His piano sonatas, his
Yeah.
string quartets,
Yeah.
they all explore this huge tapestry of human emotion
Okay.
from like the depths of despair to the heights of ecstasy.
So music can embody these dualities.
Yeah.
But the source goes even further.
Okay.
It suggests that music doesn't just mirror society, it actually shapes it.
It's right. It argues that music is more than just a reflection of society.
Yeah.
It's this dynamic force that can influence our emotions, beliefs, even our behaviors.
So it can be a powerful tool for social change.
Totally. For unity, for healing.
Yeah.
It can inspire us, challenge us, connect us in really profound ways.
And the source gives two very different examples to illustrate this idea.
Okay.
Hip-hop and rock music.
Interesting.
Let's start with hip-hop.
Okay.
How has it shaped society?
Well, think about hip-hop's origins in the Bronx in the 1970s. It emerged from this place of poverty, inequality, systemic oppression.
Yeah.
It was a voice for the marginalized, a way to express their frustration, anger, but also resilience, creativity, and a desire for change.
It wasn't just about the music itself, though, right?
No, it was about the whole culture.
Yeah.
The dance, the art, the fashion.
Right.
It became a movement.
And that movement spread from the Bronx to the entire world.
Exactly. It became this global phenomenon,
Right.
influencing music and fashion to language and politics.
It challenged the status quo in huge ways.
Well, sure. It gave a voice to those who had been silenced.
And then there's rock music,
Right.
which has gone through so many changes over the decades.
Totally.
What can we learn from rock music's evolution?
It's a fascinating reflection of the societal shifts that it both mirrored and influenced.
Yeah.
Like in the 1950s, it was about this youthful rebellion, shaking things up, but still within the confines of the existing social order.
Right, like Elvis and the moral panic he caused.
Exactly.
And then came the 1960s, and rock music aligned with the counterculture.
Right, protesting the Vietnam War, advocating for civil rights, pushing boundaries of social norms.
Then the 1970s, with rock music going deeper.
Right, into darker, more introspective territory.
Like progressive rock and the rise of heavy metal.
For sure.
And then the 80s, with all that angst and rebellion.
From punk's energy to hair metal's over-the-top theatricality.
It felt like rock music was embracing and rejecting power structures all at once.
It's like rock has its own curvature that's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Mirroring the twists and turns of society.
And what's interesting is how rock, especially metal, explores these dark themes, not to glorify them.
Right, but to illuminate the path towards the light.
It's like facing the shadows within ourselves and within society.
Confronting those difficult emotions, those existential questions.
Or using music as a way to heal and transform.
Exactly.
I love how the source even suggests that rock, and especially metal, can be seen as spiritual schools of thought.
It's a compelling idea.
What do you think of that?
Think about the intense emotional release that metal provides. The sense of community among fans. And the way the music grapples with themes of life, death, purpose, the search for meaning.
So they're offering this catharsis, this space to confront our deepest fears.
And anxieties.
And find belonging and purpose.
Yes, in the face of the unknown.
Okay, so we've covered a lot.
We have.
But there's still this big question.
Okay.
Is the modern music industry, with its focus on profits and trends, disrupting this connection between music and the field?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The source definitely brings up some concerns about how music is being commodified.
Right.
With this emphasis on going viral mass appeal.
Yeah.
Potentially sacrificing depth and meaning just to make money.
It seems like they're saying that when algorithms and marketing strategies start dictating what music gets heard, there's a real risk of losing that authentic, raw expression.
For sure. That's always been at the heart of music's connection to the field.
So what are we consuming as listeners?
Right.
What are we supporting?
Are we seeking out music that resonates with us on a deeper level?
Music that challenges us, inspires us, connects us to something bigger.
Yeah, or are we just settling for the musical equivalent of junk food?
So are we saying that the modern music industry is inherently bad?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Technology has democratized music in a lot of ways.
Right.
It's given independent artists a platform to share their work.
Yeah.
Without needing record labels.
Well, it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
This potential for losing authenticity, but also this incredible explosion of creativity.
And accessibility.
Yeah.
And this is where we as listeners have such a crucial role.
What?
We need to be discerning, seeking out music that speaks to us, supporting artists who are creating meaningful work.
Using our voices to amplify those who are pushing boundaries.
Exactly.
It's about becoming aware of how the music we choose to consume is shaping not only us, but also the collective consciousness.
We have the power to influence music.
Yeah.
To choose depth over superficiality, to support authenticity over manufactured trends.
And that brings us back to this idea from the source.
Okay.
Music tells society how to curve, and society tells music how to move.
That's such a cool concept. It's this feedback loop between music and culture.
So how does this idea of curvature play out in different genres?
So the source suggests that different genres represent unique curvatures in the field.
Okay.
High curvature genres.
Like metal or jazz.
Yeah.
They reflect complexity and intensity.
And often upheaval.
Okay.
They push boundaries, challenge conventions, explore the extremes of human emotion.
So these genres are like sonic representations of those moments in history where society's going through rapid change or transformation.
Exactly. They're reflecting the turmoil, the questioning, the breaking down of old structures, and the emergence of new possibilities.
And then on the other side, we have these low curvature genres.
Like pop or EDM.
Right.
Emphasizing accessibility and stability.
Mirroring times when society is seeking comfort and familiarity.
Yeah, it's like a pendulum swinging back and forth.
Between these two extremes.
And it's important to remember that all of these curvatures, all of these genres are valid expressions of the field.
Yeah.
Each offering a unique perspective to the tapestry of human experience.
I love that analogy of the tapestry.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even though we may have our own individual preferences, We're all part of this larger interconnected web of musical expression.
Exactly. And while we might be drawn to certain genres more than others,
Right.
it's important to recognize the shared truths that run through all music,
They're all speaking the same language.
even if they're using different dialects.
And this leads us to another cool idea from the source.
Okay.
The idea that different genres are like different yardsticks for measuring the field.
I like that.
Can you unpack that for us?
So the source uses metal and hip-hop as examples,
Okay.
arguing that metal, with its intensity and exploration of dark themes, measures the extremes of power, rebellion, existential depth.
It's like dropping a sonic plumb line
Yeah.
into the deepest parts of us.
Grappling with the big, scary questions about life, death, and meaning.
Metal really does feel like it pushes us to our limits.
It does.
Makes us confront those uncomfortable truths we'd rather avoid.
Yeah.
And hip-hop.
With its focus on rhythm flow and storytelling,
Right.
captures the pulse of society,
Okay.
reflecting its resilience and adaptability.
Like a sonic heartbeat.
Pulsing with the energy of the streets, giving voice to the struggles and triumphs of everyday life.
So each genre offers a unique lens to understand the field and how it shows up in the world.
It's about expanding our perspective and recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
Even in different musical forms.
Exactly. And this brings us to a crucial point.
Okay.
Even though the modern music industry has some challenges,
Right.
there's still so much beauty, depth, and meaning to be found in music.
The source isn't telling us to give up on music, right?
Not at all. It's about finding those glimmers of hope.
Okay.
Those artists who are still creating authentic, soul-stirring work, even amidst the noise and chaos of the industry.
So what's the takeaway here? What does this mean for us?
As listeners, as creators, as participants in this global musical landscape,
Yeah, it feels like we're at this crossroads with music. Like we can either let it become this shallow, commercialized product, or we can fight for its power to connect us, inspire us, even change the world.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. It's a choice we all face, you know, not just musicians or people in the industry, but as listeners, as consumers, as participants in this culture. What role do we want music to play in our lives, in the world around us?
So what can we do? Is there a way to reclaim that spiritual and cultural power?
Well, the source does offer some hope. It points to the rise of independent platforms like Bandcamp and Patreon, where artists can connect directly with their fans and create music without needing those big labels. They're making their own way, building communities, creating music that comes from a real place, you know, from passion and integrity.
It's like they're creating these little ecosystems, their own microfields, where authenticity and creativity can thrive.
Exactly. And what's really encouraging is that there's this growing demand for music with substance.
Okay.
People want music that speaks to their soul.
Yeah.
Music that makes us think and feel and connect more deeply. That's where the real hope is, you know, in the listeners who are looking for something more than just catchy hooks and empty lyrics.
So it's up to us to support these artists, to give them a platform, to create a space where music can be a force for good in the world.
Absolutely. We need to be more conscious, you know, making choices that support the kind of music we want to see succeed.
So we need to become more conscious listener,
Yeah, more discerning.
more active in shaping the future of music.
We have to be willing to go deeper, to challenge ourselves, to really listen with open hearts and minds,
to explore new genres.
to engage with music on a deeper level.
And that brings us right back to the beginning of this deep dive.
Yeah,
Music is more than just entertainment,
it's a reflection of the field,
a language for our souls.
a force that shapes our world,
It's a gift, a responsibility.
and a source of infinite possibility.
So to wrap up this whole deep dive